Welcome to EProtect. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your support. I'm excited to bring you episode 7 of DriveBack, the series where we revisit the cars that made the road what it is today. And this one feels personal. Before GR badges, before turbocharged hot hatches, before Toyota re entered the performance conversation, there was the Celica. Sharp, lightweight, high revving, a sport compact built for a generation that lived in the early 2000s when coupes were everywhere and driving still felt mechanical. Today we're looking at how the Toyota Celica carried the torch for Toyota performance during a time when sporty, affordable cars actually defined car culture and what's left of that era now. From its high revving GTS engine to its place in tuner history, we're taking a closer look at the coupe that came before GR changed everything. Let's drive back. There was a moment right before turbochargers took over, right before everything got heavier, when sport compacts actually felt alive. For that moment, there was the Toyota Celica. It wasn't the fastest car on the road, it wasn't the most powerful, but it felt like it belonged to you. When the 7th generation Celica launched in 2000, Toyota wasn't chasing luxury. They were building a lightweight coupe for drivers who wanted something sharp, affordable, and just aggressive enough to stand out. And then there was a GTS, high revving 2ZZ engine, lift kicking in near redline, a surge of power that rewarded commitment. You had to drive it properly. You had to stay in the power band. And when you did, it came alive. The Celica wasn't about flexing, it was about momentum, about learning how to carry speed through a corner. It became part of early 2000s culture. Body kits, exhaust notes, late night parking lot meets. It was accessible performance for a generation that grew up modifying cars instead of financing them. And then it was gone. Production ended in 2005. No direct successor, no goodbye tour. Just the quiet end of Toyota's sport compact era, before GR, before the comeback. Now let's take a look at the current market for the Toyota Celica. For that, we'll be using Carfax, one of the most recognized vehicle history platforms in the US. It's where buyers, sellers, and even repair professionals go to see how cars have held up over time. From service records to ownership history, Carfax gives us a clear window into how the Toyota Celica has aged, and more importantly, how many are still on the road today. And just a disclaimer, all Carfax footage shown here is used under fair use for educational and analytical purposes. This video isn't sponsored or affiliated with Carfax. It's purely for discussion and for review. So here in Carfax, we can see that there are 23 Toyota Celicas currently listed for sale in the USA, and they're sorted from year old to new. So let's get started. So this 1981 Toyota Celica GT is going for $10,000 with 96,000 miles. And we can see that it comes in a nice baby blue color, and the exterior based on this photo seems to be in very good condition with no fading on the clear coat. And we can see that the interior is also in very good condition. And these cars have the textured front and rear bumper, unlike the typical vehicles of today that have painted bumpers. And yeah, overall for a 1981 with 96,000 miles, the first owner and any other owners after definitely took care of this vehicle. And this is in great shape, and it can definitely be a collector's item. And we can see that the emblem for the Celica is different than the standard emblem for any Toyota product today. So it goes to show that the branding was a bit different for the Celica. And we can see it has an aftermarket radio. But yeah, overall, there is some wear and tear on the interior components, but for a 1981, this vehicle held up very well, and it has a lot of trunk space as well, which is pretty nice. So let's take a look at some more. So let's take a look at this 1988 Toyota Celica GT. It has 130,000 miles, and it's going for 7,800. So the photos aren't too good on this one, but we can see that it's a convertible, a two-door with blue suede interior. And based on the photos, even though it's a bit blurry, we can see that there's no major dents, scrapes, any visible damage. And also it has great trunk space. So this vehicle, you can grab it for 7,800 with 130,000 miles for 1988, which isn't that bad considering that these used cars can go up to 200, 300,000 as a Toyota. So let's see some more. We can look at this 1996 Toyota Celica GT. So this one has 149,000 miles and it's going for $6,000. So for this Toyota Celica, we can see that it has black paint and there's no visible, fading on the clear coat. The interior is worn in the driver's seat and, various areas. We can see that there's tape on the driver's seat, so it was likely cracked. And the rear passenger has two seats, which don't seem to be very spacious, but I guess for children or any passengers, they can definitely squeeze in there. So this is the 1996 Toyota Celica, and overall this one's in good condition. No major damage on the exterior, and yeah, you can grab this one for $6,000 with 149,000 miles. Definitely a little higher on the mileage, but for the price, I think it compensates. So let's take a look at some more. So we have another 1996 Toyota Celica. This one's an ST. I'm not too sure what ST stands for. It might be standard, but if any of you guys know, definitely let me know in the comment section. So this one has 160,000 miles and it's going for $5,000. And from first glance, the paint seems to be in pristine condition. And the interior seems to be in good condition. There is some, tearing on the glove box, but once again, this is a vehicle that's over 25 years old. It's in 1996. And yeah, we can see overall, there's some scratches, I believe, and, scraping on the front bumper cover. But overall, this one's in good shape. No major dents, no major scrapes. So yeah, you can grab this 1996 Toyota Celica for $5,000 with around 160,000 miles. And let's take a look at some more. So before we go into the 2000 Celica, where it's an updated body style, let's look at another one from the 1990s. So this is a 1999 Toyota Celica GT. It has 73,000 miles and it's going for $11,895. And it has black paint, and this one doesn't seem to have any major clear coat fading. We can see some wear and tear on the interior, which is typical. And yeah, we can see those rear seats, not very spacious, but for someone that's smaller or children, it would work out just fine. And yeah, this Toyota Celica is a convertible, two-door, and considering it's from 1999, 73,000 miles isn't much at all. So you can definitely grab this one for $11,895, and it would probably last you over 200,000 miles, even more than 300,000 miles if you take care of it. So let's move on to the 2000s. This is one of my favorite body styles of the Celica. So this is the 2000 Toyota Celica GT. It has 170,000 miles, which is quite a lot, and it's going for $8,000. And it has that new steering wheel compared to the ones from the 80s and 90s. And this one's a manual transmission. And yeah, the paint seems to be in great condition. No visible fading on the clear coat, no major dents or scrapes. And yeah, the interior seems very clean. And I like the orange odometer. So we see 170,000 miles. And yeah, overall, this one is a very nice looking car. Very good trunk space once again on these Celicas for some reason. Applaud to, whoever designed the vehicle, because, trunk space definitely comes in handy. So yeah, you can grab that for $8,000 with 170,000 miles. So let's look at some more from the 2000s. So we have another one, 2001 Toyota Celica GT, going for $3,500 with 185,000 miles. So, this one has a blue interior and a blue exterior. I'm not sure if the blue interior is aftermarket, if, that's seat covers or, seats that were installed. And yeah, but overall, the exterior is in very good condition and the interior is very clean as well. Okay, so we see the note that the seller says needs new engine, selling as is. So that 3,500 really isn't too good of a deal when you consider that the engine needs to be replaced. So, definitely when you're buying cars, definitely take a look at everything that they send, all the photos that they post and any notes. This one's a one owner vehicle, no accidents, but they are saying it needs a new engine, which would add to the price and the cost that you acquire this vehicle at. So let's take a look at some more. Let's take a look at this 2004 Toyota Celica GT. This one has 73,000 miles and it's going for 12,600. And we can see this one has no accidents reported, 3+ owners, very low miles for a 2004. There's only one photo available, but based on this one photo, it seems like it's in great condition. But obviously, if you're purchasing this, you would want to, do research and get some more photos and, you know, test drive the car and things like that. And seems like we're coming to the end of the Celicas. So there's this 2005 Toyota Celica GT going for $3,000 with 229,000 miles. And it's this bright yellow color. This one has hubcaps and yeah, there's wear and tear on the interior, some scrapes on the rear bumper. Yeah, it seems like the front bumper cover is, out of alignment with the hood. You can see, the gap on the driver's side is wider than the gap on the passenger side, showing that, the bumper is not straight. But, definitely, this vehicle has wear and tear. I believe there's some rust on the left quarter panel. And, I mean, for a car with 229,000 miles, and, the rust may be because this is probably from the Northeast. So this is Copart, one of the largest online vehicle auction platforms in the world, where many of these older vehicles end up after an accident or when they're no longer roadworthy. And just a disclaimer, all Copart footage shown here is used under fair use for educational and analytical purposes. This video isn't sponsored or affiliated with Copart. It's just for discussion and for review. So here in Copart, we can see that there are 39 Toyota Celicas currently listed, and they're sorted from year old to new. So let's take a look at some of these Celicas and see what happened to them. So we can start with this 1978 Toyota Celica, and it says primary damage is burned engine, and the odometer reading is 58,000 miles. So we can see based on the photos that the front end has burn damage, as it stated, engine damage. And, overall, this car's in rough condition with the paint, and there's, various scrapes and scratches throughout the body panels. Um, yeah, it seems like this vehicle, was in a front end collision based on how the fender is bent and the front end is crumpled. And, it likely caught on fire after the collision. We can see that the front end is charred, the front bumper is charred, the hood is charred. And, for some reason, the back glasses is gone from the vehicle as well. And, the interior is in rough condition. However, it seems I'm not sure if the fire got into the cabin area. Um, but yeah, it seems like the interior was spared from the fire damage, and hopefully, whoever was in the vehicle, they were able to escape without any, injuries or anything like that. So yeah, we can definitely see, fire damage in the engine compartment. So, considering the age of this vehicle, they didn't give us the estimated retail value. However, with burn damage, those types of damages are rarely recoverable just due to the amount of work and labor it would take to safely repair this. So yeah, let's move on to another Toyota Celica. So let's look at this one right here. So this is a 1984 Toyota Celica. It says Supra L type. That's the first time I'm hearing of that. So this one is being sold by USAA, which is an insurance company. So this is most likely an insurance loss and primary damage front end and estimated retail value 12,000 with the mileage being 132,000. So let's look at what happened to this vehicle. So immediately we can see from this photo that the front bumper is pushed inwards, it's cracked, and the fender is bent on the top. And this one has the cool headlamps that go up and down, which I really like those headlamps. And It looks like the car's in decent shape other than the front end. There is, I believe, some dents, a dent on the right quarter panel, as you can see. But yes, the front end sustained the impact, and it dented the right fender as well, and the hood is buckled. So yeah, let's see if there's no airbag deployment or anything like that, and we could see the Supra logo on this one, which is interesting. So, the interior looks clean, and we could also see the Supra badging on the steering wheel. Um, so yeah, and also more badging on the center grille piece, I believe. And yeah, so this is likely a special trim model that they had, the Toyota Celica Supra. So that's the first time I'm hearing of this, but definitely the badging confirms that this is a trim that exists. So that's pretty cool. That just goes to show that when you're on Copart, you can learn new things about a vehicle that you never heard of before. So let's take a look at some more. Let's take a look at this 1991 Toyota Celica GT, and the seller is GE. I'm assuming that's Geico, but I could be wrong. The odometer here is 238,000 miles of primary damage front end, secondary side, and estimated retail is 1578, which in my opinion is very very low, but for the mileage, maybe that definitely lowers the value quite a bit on this model. So we see here that the driver's side sustained you know a heavy side impact, side collision damage. We can see that the doors is completely bent and crimped, and the quarter panel took a very strong dent. And back in the this car is from 1991. I don't think any car from this era really had side curtain airbags at that time. So hopefully the driver was okay. And we can see the front end damage here on the right side, where there's scraping on the front bumper, and there's a dent on the lower right fender. And we can see the fender getting pushed. There's two areas you can see. So you can see between the right fender and the door that the gap is uneven, because you can see that there's more space at the top and less space at the bottom, showing that the collision energy transferred and pushed the fender back. And also we can see signs of energy transfer between the fender and the hood, where the gap is very tight at the top between the fender and the hood, whereas towards the bottom it's bigger, showing that the fender got pushed back and upwards. So that's just a cool fact, showing how in collisions there's direct damage and there's indirect damage. So overall, this one has front end damage and very strong side collision. And, considering the low estimated retail value, high mileage, this one wouldn't get repaired from an insurance perspective. So let's take a look at some more Celicas. So this one stands out to me. This one's a 1995 Toyota Celica base. Has 278,000 miles. Wow. So this one, made it pretty far. And this one has primary damage front end, secondary damage side, with estimated retail value of 3275. So we can see here that the front end sustained a pretty severe impact. The front bumper is nowhere to be seen. The reinforcement bar is crushed. And other than the front end, the right side doesn't seem that bad. There's scrapes, scratches. Same for the right, scrape scratches. Um, but yeah, we can see that the front end took a very strong impact. You can see the radiator condenser being bent, the hood being pushed back, and um, yeah, just the hood being pushed into the aperture of the vehicle, the fender liner. There's things like the washer reservoir and various components. Um, yeah, so this one definitely has structural damage in the front end. And just a side note, this rear bumper is super cool. I'm not sure if that's stock, but I just really like the way it looks on this particular car. And we can see the interior is very rough. Yeah, that steering wheel is very strange looking. Seems like yeah, definitely in the accident it probably, shifted because it's not like, like a circle, it's like basically it shifted on the right side. So that just goes to show how strong this collision was if, the steering wheel got buckled, which is crazy. Um so yeah, 278,000 miles, and yeah, we can see that the structural components are pushed back, the apron, the reinforcement bar, and yeah, just a radiator support and all those components are shifted, and this would need to go in a frame machine and undergo structural repairs, which at a retail value of 3275, this is an easy total loss any all day long, just due to the nature of the damage and the amount of components that need to get replaced. So yeah, let's take a look at some more Toyota Celicas. Let's see ones that stand out. So this one's a 2001 Toyota Celica. So we're moving into the 2000s. This one has 224,000 miles, primary damage rear end, secondary damage undercarriage, and estimated retail value 3,600. So yeah, this one has a low, estimated retail value. Front end looks good. Left side is, damaged. So we see that the quarter panel is, crushed in many areas, and the gap between the quarter panel and the driver's door, you can see that the quarter panel shifted. The quarter panel is buckled on the contour line in various areas. So most repair shops would see this quarter panel and, aim for a replacement. Not saying it couldn't be repaired, but many shops would, consider a replacement just due to the amount of labor hours it would take to repair this properly and the amount of work it would take. The suspension on the left rear is completely shifted, so there's definitely damage to things like the control panel, the axles, things like that. And the left tail lamp is gone from the vehicle, presumed to be destroyed. The even the wheel is bent. Um I don't even believe that could be repaired at this point. It's just, completely cracked and, not safe to be repaired. And, the right side seems very clean. We see that the rear bumper is detached. And yeah, the this vehicle was in very good condition other than the collision. But yeah, that collision happened and now it's a total loss just due to the value. And the badging says GTS, which is pretty cool. No airbag deployment, which makes sense. There wasn't any front impact, and yeah, so this one sustained a lot of damage, structural damage, damage in various body panels. So this is an easy total loss just due to the estimated retail value of under 4,000. And that's it for the seventh episode of DriveBack. This series is all about revisiting the cars that made the road what it is today, and this is just a start. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed today's episode, drop a comment, hit like, and subscribe so you don't miss out on the next one.